Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. So this is a very topical video and I think that we've all got to think very carefully about hand cleanliness, cleaning your hands, hand hygiene, sanitised hands. You know what I'm talking about just now. It's just we've got to be very mindful. There'll be no scaremongering because at the end of the day, you're doing everything you can if you keep your hands nice and clean and you don't touch your face. But in my industry, we're working with members of the public day in, day out. We are using tools, we're using makeup brushes, we're working on skin. Sometimes, again, you're working on people's faces. So if you think about it, we've got to make sure that our hands are very clean when we're working with members of the public. And if there's a virus going about and they're telling us to make sure that we're ultra clean and our hands are probably the most likely way to pass on infection, then we have to make sure that we do everything we can to minimise those risks. So let's not scaremonger, but let's remind ourselves about some hand hygiene. So what I would say about my industry, so it's beauty therapy, makeup artistry, is we are always told the importance of making sure we've got clean hands. But can I just say that the most important thing to do is to wash those hands thoroughly and dry those hands thoroughly. So can you make sure that if you don't do it already, have a look at something like the NHS videos that show you how to wash your hands. It's normally, they suggest about 20 seconds. They've got a full selection of songs that you can sing in your head while you're cleaning your hands. And it's about, again, getting in between the fingers. It's about making sure that you get in between your fingers. You cover the wrists as well. It's so important in our industry that we don't just stop at the wrist. We go to the wrist and above. So again, make sure that you're just getting under the nails. Again, it's all on the videos. It's really important in our industry that we not only clean those hands thoroughly, but that we dry those hands thoroughly. If you don't dry your hands and they're still a bit damp, then you're not helping yourself and you're not making sure you've got optimal cleanliness. So you might also see here that I've got some products. So I wanted to just talk you through some of the products again that we use in the beauty and makeup industries. Also, you might recognise Barbicide from different places such as nail techs, from hairdressers. If you've ever seen in the hairdressers, they might keep some of the combs and some of the scissors in their Barbicide jars. I thought we'd talk you through some of the things that we use. Peace of mind, but also you might choose to keep some of your own tools in these too. And it's just to remind you why we do it and how effective they can be. So Barbicide, let me just show you. So it's obviously a blue liquid. Again, these are all very flammable, very dangerous. Don't leave them in the reach of anyone that you think could misuse them because they would know all about it. And again, you wouldn't want to be just using these things straight. A lot of the times, if you do use these, you've got to use them with caution because they're flammable. They can be highly irritating to your breathing, to your skin. First one I'm going to start off with is the Barbicide. So it is germicide, fungicide, viricide. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that it absolutely removes everything, but if you do use any tools, then they also say in the directions recommended for barbers, beauty salons, hairdressers, they also say you can make it hospital strength. And they give you the mixing solution. They tell you exactly how often you should be changing it. And again, the strength to make sure that you're cleaning your instruments and tools. But they do remind you that you should thoroughly clean scissors, combs, brushes, rollers, you name it, manicure, salon tools. You've got to make sure that they're immersed for at least 10 minutes. And again, you've got to rinse before use, but Barbicide is very effective if you're working with any tools from client to client, or if you want to make sure that they're extremely clean before and after use. I'll leave the isopropyl alcohol till last. The next one is the surgical spirit. So sometimes surgical spirit is also called rubbing alcohol, but so is the isopropyl. So it says here on the container that surgical spirit is for general cleaning and disinfection of tools and implements. Now, you can use surgical spirit on the skin. I would say be very careful Now, we often put our surgical spirit into spray bottles. You have got to make sure that they're labelled. Again, you don't want a situation where people do not know what they're using. But surgical spirit can crack plastic. So many moons ago, we used to clean our wax pots with it, but it actually thins and can dry out and can break the plastic. So there's different wax equipment cleaners that I would use for that. But isopropyl and surgical spirit can also be referred to as rubbing alcohol. They both kill bacteria. And what you can do, sometimes you'll see again that these might be in wipes in different forms, but we can use these to sterilise and wipe equipment. Isopropyl alcohol is very effective for cleaning brushes in the makeup industry, and it's quick to sanitise and quick to evaporate. So with the surgical spirit and the isopropyl, you have to be careful because they're flammable. But what you tend to find is in your sanitizers, it's normally one of these products that are in it because it's the rubbing alcohol mixed with whatever the carrier is that actually gives you the sanitization. And we're actually going to look at that in a little moment. What some people will do is actually wipe the skin with surgical spirit. I've not so much seen with the isopropyl, but I'm sure they do. Can wipe the skin beforehand to dry it out if you're doing something, say like an underarm wax, and they want to make sure that there's no residue of any sweat or oil on the skin. But again, there's different products that do that now, so I try not to, because I always remember when I was training, somebody got their pre-wax and post-wax lotions mixed up, and because you can use surgical spirit to clean the skin beforehand. Imagine this, I'll never forget, we were training and somebody did an underarm wax, and instead of using the soothing after wax lotion, the follicles have just been emptied, the skin's very sensitive, they got their products muddled, and they put a cotton pad with surgical spirit onto that underarm after they'd waxed it. And I always remember we just heard the client hit the roof. Obviously it's not damaging, but oh my goodness, that must have stung. And I just remember them going, oh, and it's not funny because you know what it's like when something stings. Don't get those mixed up. Tell you something, I wasn't involved in that, but see, just as a witness, that was good for me to learn, don't do that. So never forgotten, never forgotten. But again, if you needed to wipe your hands, if you couldn't get to soap, if you couldn't get to a sink, but you did have one of these, then you could use a bit on cotton wool and just wipe it over your hands, and that would, in theory, disinfect them as best you could. And another thing that I want to talk to you about is, though, just make sure if you're working with clients, it's a bit of a hot topic in the sense that when I trained, you weren't allowed to wear nail polish, not even clear. And it was because in case someone was allergic to your nail polish, but also if you wore a colour, you couldn't see if there was any dirt underneath your nails, because sometimes you've got bits of dirt and you don't know it. And other times, I hate to say it, but when you're training in massage, you do actually have to think about it. When you're massaging over a body, there's dead skin cells. So what happens is you will get little bits of dead skin cells under your nails, hence why you scrub your hands after a massage. But if you're wearing nail polish, you might not actually think about that, and you might forget that you need to scrub under your nails. So personally, not looking for an argument in any way, in today's climate where we've got to be very careful with viruses being passed about, I wouldn't wear my nail polish in the salon. I would actually ditch the nail polish and just make sure that I can see under my nails, just in case you didn't realise that you were accumulating some bits of dirt and grime that you couldn't see under the free edge. Just until we know that we're through this, if you're used to wearing your nail polish, some of the arguments have been that I've heard is it's good to have nail polish on because it lets people see your skills. It's also a selling technique because you can see the colours that you offer in the salon. But personally, again, it just goes back to my training. We were not allowed to wear it for sanitisation purposes, health and safety, and also in case your client was allergic. That's just me. But at the moment, with just being aware of viruses, I wouldn't wear the nail polish. But again, not judging, not preaching, just me saying what I would do. So again, not looking for an argument. But what we can do, and what I wasn't going to do, but I've actually changed my mind now, is I'll move this surgical spirit out the way. I wasn't going to show you how you could make a DIY hand sanitizer because I don't want anyone thinking that we're chemists. We're not chemists. But when I saw that some doctors on TV were actually recommending it, and the one in particular that I saw was Good Morning Britain this week, it was Dr. Hillary, When he said that it was a no-brainer and it was really easy to do, I thought, right, if the doctors are showing you on TV and encouraging you, then I'll show you how you could make one. But just remember that when you're making a product, you have to label it. You have to make sure you make it correctly, and you have to remember that you're putting a flammable rubbing alcohol into this, so you need to have your sensible head on. So I'll show you one way that you can make a sanitizer, especially because they're so hard to get at the moment. Even today I had to go out and get some aloe vera gel. I've had it before, but when I finished it I didn't buy more. But to make this particular hand sanitizer, I had to pop up to Superdrug to get some. Even there at the front entrance they've said maximum 2 hand sanitizers per customer, and as we all know, they're ramping up the prices. So it might be that you can't buy it, it might be that you can't afford it, so this is a manageable way to actually make your own. So what you need is some sort of rubbing alcohol with a minimum alcohol content of 60%. This isopropyl is 99.9% minimum, so that's definitely above the 60. Oh, do not even think about drinking that. You're not meant to touch this. This is purely for the purposes of using for products, for cleaning. Don't do it. So you need your rubbing alcohol. You need some sort of, I prefer the aloe vera gel, but something basically as a carrier for it, and you want it so that it actually does evaporate on the skin. So when you're working with these two together, they'll be very similar to the gels that you would buy anyway. Some sort of mixing dish. You don't have to, but an essential oil if you'd like to put one in to give it a scent. So I thought obviously tea tree essential oil, because I want to continue that antibacterial property of that hand gel. Something to mix it with. I've gone for a disposable spoon. Again, just because once I'm finished with it, this one can actually be reused, but you don't want a situation where you're mixing this up and then you put it in the kitchen and somebody doesn't know and they don't clean it properly. You've got to be so careful with this. And then I've got an empty hand sanitizer container, which is ideal because I can just put it in it. But you just want something that's easily usable. So some sort of squeezy container, something that you could maybe again go up to one of your chemists or pharmacies. Sometimes you can see in the travel department they've got the little bottles, just something like that. Label it though, make sure you label it, because if you don't know what it is, you don't remember what it is, or someone else goes to use it and they don't know what it is, you don't want someone using it the wrong way. So because this already says hand sanitizer on it, I know what it is. These ones should last just as long, because again, it's got the rubbing alcohol in it, but just make sure you don't keep it for ages. Make sure that you label it when you made it, even just put it on the bottom on a sticker. This is the date that I made it. And I'll show you how simple it is. So I'm going to put my gel in first, and I'm only going to make a tiny amount because this is a very small bottle. So squeeze some gel in. And then judge. So just see how flat that is. So that's literally just covering the bottom. And then putting a little bit of this in. So you might not be able to see this, but I'm just judging my alcohol. But remember, you can be much more, you can measure it all out if you need to. That's it. Now that smells very strong. So what you can do is add in some of your essential oil. So this is some tea tree. I always love to smell it first. So, oh, that came out quite quick. I'd say that was about 6 drops, which is ironic because that's exactly how much I was looking for. And then give that a little mix. Now when I smell that, it's still got that potent smell. Right, so what I did was I did my 2 parts isopropyl, which is your rubbing alcohol, to your 1 part aloe vera gel, and mixed it in here. And then what happens is it goes very liquidy very quickly like this. This is a much fresher one. And at that point, I added in my essential oil of tea tree. And then what happens is it looks far too liquidy and you think, no, that's not working. That definitely doesn't work. But then you leave it and you let it settle and it starts to thicken again. So that's where we're at now. So just let it settle, let it do its thing, and it will start to thicken. But initially it looks so liquid that you're convinced that it's not going to work. But that's how it's looking. And then when you smell it, you definitely still get that isopropyl rubbing alcohol smell. So I could actually add more tea tree in. But because mine is the strongest going, it's 99%, it's never going to be a subtle smell. So as long as it does its job, it doesn't matter what it smells like. But with the tea tree, I'm getting that added level of antibacterial property. What you can do very carefully is add it into your chosen bottle. So that's what I'll do now, and then I'll let you see how it looks in that bottle. So that's me. I've decanted my sanitizer. Now, I'll be honest with you, it is a bit faffy. I don't know if I could be bothered, but it's to show you that there is a way to do it. And then when you're using it, because it's got the rubbing alcohol, you just take a little bit out. And then you can feel the aloe vera gel giving it that movement. And then you can feel that it's the rubbing alcohol, you can feel it drying off. But that's it. That's exactly what I would expect a hand sanitizer to do. But again, it's a little bit of a faff. I would truthfully only make my own if I couldn't get any. But it's handy, and that's just one way to do it. Let me have a smell. You can smell the tea tree, so that's a good thing. When you're making it, all you can really smell is the rubbing alcohol, and it's like, oof, knock you out. Do you know what it reminds me of? The rubbing alcohol reminds me of when you were getting your ears pierced, if anyone remembers, when they wipe your ears before they pierce them. That's what it reminds me of. But once you've actually made it and you've blended it, if you've chosen to put an essential oil in, that definitely comes through. And that's it. It does exactly what I would expect a shop-bought one to do. It's just a little bit of a faff. But again, I thought it was good to know. But the main thing is, let's just remember to keep those hands clean. They're saying at the moment with this virus that the thing that we have to do more than anything is keep those hands clean, because when we clean our hands, we're taking the risk of passing it from person to person down to as low a risk as we possibly can. So let's not scaremonger. Let's just keep those hands nice and clean. So I hope that was helpful. As always, leave me a comment, and I will see you again soon.